Hello everybody, Dokkan Assets here. Today we are back with another animation analysis video, and ladies and gentlemen, we are taking a look at the boy Super Saiyan Future Gohan, the brand new STR Worldwide Celebration Part 2 LR, the bamboozler of roses everywhere. That's right, this man took the place, or well, what we assumed would be the place of Super Saiyan Rose Goku Black. Now, the animations for my man. I am very excited to talk about these, especially considering how much I talked about the boy Trunks. If you saw that video already, if not, definitely go watch that because I had quite a bit to say about that unit. So please go watch that video because that video will be... I'm not gonna lie, bro, I was dunking on that unit the whole time, but by golly, it's because his animations are not it. But this boy right here, I would say that he definitely saved the part 2 for me personally in terms of the animations that we got. So let's go ahead and get into it as per usual. I do like to kind of bring this up. Well, I guess it's not as per usual. I bring it up once in a while, but we are looking at the JP animations because the global ones, they kind of like cut the sides a little bit more. So we get to see a little bit more what's going on the JP side. It's not really that much of a difference, but I will say it is really weird with the global ones that they are like a different color kind of in terms of saturation. I'm not sure if that's just the video or something like that, but just kind of something interesting. So let's go ahead and take a look at these animations. As per usual, we're going to watch through these one time through, and then we will watch them at the slow speed. Now, as always, I do like to say that I am by no means a animation professional or anything like that. I am not a professional animator or nothing, but I do look at Dokkan animations all the time. Obviously, I've done tons of these animation analysis videos by now, and not to mention, I look at Dokkan assets all the time. I mean, it's literally in the name. So I feel like I know what makes a pretty good essay. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, I would say Gohan has some pretty solid essays, if I do say so myself. I was kind of thinking when I first saw these that I was like, yeah, I like these, but it's nothing like too crazy. But now that I've kind of had a chance to really, you know, kind of absorb them, watch these essays a couple times, and not to mention having them next to sort of coping that the animations are good in my mind. This guy's animations absolutely blow Trunks out of the water, if I do say so myself. And not to mention, obviously, this is such a super cool active skill here with the Piccolo and Goku giving Gohan a little bit of that extra push to be able to defeat the androids here in this kind of what if Dokkan original. Really, really cool stuff here. I love the direction that they took for this unit a lot. So let's go ahead and get into it as per usual when it comes to these videos. I say as per usual a lot, huh? When it comes to these videos that I'm uploading, basically like, you know, a little bit after the essays come out, and then I get them out, you know, as soon as I can, like that day. I unfortunately don't have crazy amount of comparisons to give to you to compare directly to the anime for these. However, I do have one small comparison that was something that I actually noticed right out the gate when it came to this unit. So first of all, we have the intro animation with Gohan flying in. I will say this does look pretty cool. I like the way that he kind of comes in, and the aura looks really good. I like the kind of dark sort of color that they have for him before his aura kind of flares off a little bit, which is sort of interesting. And I feel like it's usually the opposite, but I do like the way that this looks. I think it is pretty cool. The one thing that I will say, I guess, is like the slightest bit jarring, I suppose, is kind of how he goes from this to this, right? Where, I mean, I guess to be fair, his legs are just kind of going down because he's about to come to a full stop, but I kind of wish there was one for him that's unit, but that's definitely just a nitpick. However, obviously Gohan lifting his arm up. Oh, and how could I also forget? Absolute W that this is one-arm Future Gohan. I know people were, you know, talking about that for a really long time, that you know, obviously, oh, you know, they can't do one-arm Future Gohan and blah, 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 blah. Obviously, we had the AGL one with Trunks, and, you know, we had the... Did the free-to-play one have the one-arm? I don't think he did, the Fizz one. Nonetheless, though, it's cool to see a really cracked unit that is the one-arm Future Gohan, so you love to see it. I do like this animation though. I like the way that the ki dissipates and Gohan kind of moves to land on the ground. I really, really like the implication of the movement too as he kind of moves past the screen. I feel like they do that a lot in the anime, so I like that a lot. And Gohan's actual landing looks really good. It has just the right amount of frames that I feel like should be there, where he kind of recoils from the landing and then stands up straight. Really, really like that, if I'm being honest with you. So we have Gohan clench his fist a little bit here. You can see his arm doing a little shimmy shim. And then we have this shot here of Gohan powering up with a little bit of green tint on the eyes before it goes backwards into the Super Saiyan, or backwards I meant by like the camera angle, obviously moving back a little bit before we then get this nice shot of Gohan. I will say his eyes almost feel like too like far up or something like that, or like far down his head. I don't know why, but this is a nice looking shot for sure. Now, I'm sure some of you probably recognize this right at the gate, and I know as soon as I saw this in the initial video that they showed these units off, I was like, holy cow, that's Broly's second coming. And shout out to this Japanese Twitter user. I think this just got retweeted onto my timeline by somebody else. But this is a nice little comparison of these two scenes. You can see right here that obviously it is basically like bar for bar, right? The same scene from the Broly Second Coming movie that they implemented into Future Gohan here. Now, I will say, it is a bit of an interesting choice, right? To use this particular animation of all things, to put onto a future Gohan unit, you know? I feel like this just kind of like a weird choice. I'm not like necessarily against it or don't think it looks bad or anything like that, really. I mean, I think the animation looks good, to be honest with you. It's just interesting that, you know, now, I mean, does this mean that if we get some kind of Broly Second Coming Gohan that you won't have this animation of the initial transformation, or they'll just redo it in some different way? I don't know, but I guess to be fair, like, they didn't really have that much left for Future Gohan in terms of like the transformation itself. But regardless though, I just thought it was something very interesting to point out. And I think it does look cool. The one thing that I will say is a little disappointing about it, and I know you can't hear it in this video because obviously I mute the essays for these, otherwise it would sound like a jumbled mess, is that the voice lines don't really match up with the mouth, right? Because he's talking the entire time that he then opens his mouth, right? So obviously it's not like talking lip flaps. It's basically just like, you know, speech is coming out of his mouth and his mouth looks like this. So that is a little bit jarring, but I don't know if I would chalk that up to like the animation, or if I would chalk that up to like the audio and the audio syncing or something like that. Because I would think, right, that maybe that would be more so like they should have started the audio a little bit sooner, like when his arm was kind of clenching, right? And then the audio would maybe like cut off once it got to his face, and then they have a scream in there or something like that. But nonetheless, though, I do really like this animation. I was definitely surprised to see this, though. And it's a cool little Easter egg, almost, I feel like, in this. But yeah, overall, I think the animation looks great. It looks fantastic. The colors look great. The effects look great. You can actually see Gohan's clothes moving, right, in the wind. Trunks looking at you. Very, very nice looking. Even here, right, for this nice close-up shot, you can see in the aura. And the hair, by the way, the movement on the hair. Oh, my gosh. That looks very, very nice. The aura, too. Alright, so we then move on to the 12 ki super attack here with Gohan readying up. First of all, I love the way that the background kind of turns here to give this a really cool dynamic feel. I really, really like this, right? Obviously, this is something that a lot of modern Dokkan essays have been doing, kind of moving the background a little bit to give a little bit more implication of movement, or just kind of some more interesting camera angles, right? And I really, really like this for Gohan. It looks really, really nice. I think they did a fantastic job with it. This Gohan sprite is obviously a little bit more like quote-unquote low quality, not in terms of like the actual like HD-ness, I don't even think that's a word, of like the asset, but obviously has a little bit of thicker black lines and a little bit of a smaller asset. But obviously that's because Gohan is about to bounce forward, and wow, look at that, we actually have a little bit of movement there before Gohan actually flies forward into this little bit of a change here, which, to be fair, they could definitely have another asset in between of him kind of jumping up, but it's definitely not the worst. Obviously, though, with Gohan moving forward, we have his arm like sleeve, right, flapping in the wind. We got his hair moving a little bit there too, which is really, really nice to see as he gets closer to the camera. And then the kick, right, which I will say, that is one thing that I gotta give basically every hit in this essay, and the 18 key as well is that the hits feel super impactful. They feel like they really pack a punch, or I guess pack a kick in this case. But they all feel super impactful, and I really, really like the way that they feel like they're actually pretty heavy, right? So with this kick, it looks nice. Gohan kind of whipping his leg around. The one thing that I feel like is a little bit jarring with this is that when he kind of moves his leg down when he's winding up here, like this, I don't know, I feel like this looks a little bit weird, where it's almost kind of like they're just sort of moving his PNG on the screen, but it's definitely not terrible. It definitely doesn't look bad. I think it's just a little bit off-putting for me, but I think that overall it looks good. And I do like that they actually have this little zoom and then kind of like the boing, boing, boing sort of effect, like the zoom in and out to really give you that sort of impact. The very nice looking teleporting away, by the way, we talked about in the Trunks video how Trunks' asset looked not that great when they had the quick movement of the speed, where they had the lines to sort of represent the character moving away. By the way, as well with the kick, I forgot to mention this, I do like this little blue effect here, which, you know, obviously it's not like key or anything like that, it's just sort of to give you a little bit of extra effect and impact on the kick, which is cool. But yeah, Gohan actually moving away. This looks great where they have the lines kind of cover him first, and then obviously have him disappear a little bit and have the lines disappear like that. That is a lot more anime accurate, and that looks fantastic if I do say so myself. The enemy flying away and Gohan punching him mid-flight is so cool. I have the biggest smile on my face watching this section. It's such a neat section here, right? Obviously Gohan teleporting in, and then bam, this punch as well, super snappy, super nice. Some really nice little bit of minimal movement of Gohan winding up there before the wabamo that obviously then he hits, right, he hits 17 away. And then obviously too, there's a little bit of recoil too, where you can see Gohan kind of moving his body, and really nice attention to detail as well, I gotta say. Gohan's eyes actually move, which is something that I didn't even really think about. But you can see that he's looking down at the enemy, right, when obviously he's giving him the punch there. And then as 17 flies away, you can see that his eyes actually change, which is a super cool attention to detail. Really, really like that. As well, the kind of speed lines that they added on Gohan's punch as well make it also feel a little bit more impactful too. He twists a little bit, and then obviously this shot is so cool, dude, and I love the perspective here as well. So the enemy obviously like flying away, right? You have Gohan come into the frame and put his hand down, right, before he kind of flips over, right? Does a, that would be a backflip, right? Yeah, backflip, or I guess more like a handspring or something like that. I'm not a gymnast, so I don't know what I'm talking about. Bear with me. But obviously Gohan then springing off the ground there, right, which is really cool. I love this camera angle as well, with Gohan, you know, obviously like coming from the left side of the frame into the frame before flying in at the enemy. I will say the way that he kind of flips, I feel like almost doesn't really make sense for the way that he ends up. Like you would think this would be him pushing off the ground and then go like up into the sky, but I guess this is more like just him kind of catching himself and then flying forward, right? Like I feel like where did the momentum come from here? But nonetheless, it still looks really cool. And I do like as well the speed lines that they have for Gohan here. We have a very nice little impact frame here, which is cool, to the white, to then the little boing, 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 boing again of the zoom, to Gohan kicking the enemy away, right? And very nice little bit here too, where Gohan kind of moves away after he actually hits them, right? Obviously, which makes sense, right? After he hits the enemy, they move back, right? Because of course, you know, he's kind of pushing off of them. And by the way, the entire time, Gohan just looks fantastic. The coloring on Gohan looks great. All of his body proportions are correct, right? It just looks really, really good. We have the same very nice sort of teleport away, you know, esque, like moving super quickly. The fantastic card art. Really, really like the card art for this. Obviously, it's basically directly from the active skill. And then we have the scene go to here, where Gohan teleports in and gets ready to fire a blast right at the enemy, which looks great if I do say so myself. Gohan getting ready here, right, kind of on his toes, immediately getting into a position here, right. There is, I feel like, enough transition here that I feel like maybe there could have been one in between this, right, one more like frame or pose, but overall I think it's high, especially in full-time speed. It looks fine. And Gohan obviously going down towards the ground, right, as he's landing, looks really good. I will say this change though is pretty drastic. I guess it makes sense enough though, because obviously Gohan's hand is out here and then it would just be like he's whipping it back over there, so I guess that's fine. It's nothing too crazy for you to like imagine that happening, and they do help your brain kind of accept it too, with obviously having the blue light, you know, be like that he was forming it in his hand as he whipped it back. and then obviously, you know, the light kind of going into the ball here, which the ball of ki looks really good here too. I will say this is a bit of an awkward transition on the coloring of Gohan here, right? You can see the very dark tones there to the very brights there. I kind of wish there was a little bit of a something there to kind of, you know, make that a little bit more nice looking, but it's not the worst. And then obviously with Gohan bringing his arm down, I like that. They do have him kind of sidestep a little bit, which I thought looked kind of weird at first, but to be fair, his foot is planted here, so it's kind of like he's moving his foot, or he's moving his body on that foot, right, to then kind of move over. So I suppose it makes sense from that perspective. Very, very cool impact frame right here, by the way, right? I'm literally pointing to the screen because it's so cool. With a little bit of highlights of blue, and then obviously the black and yellow there. And then the ball obviously squishing against the enemy is great. If this wasn't this stinky sprite, it would be so cool to see how they would implement this with like an actual character model that this is hitting. But I really, really like that they kind of squish it against the enemy to kind of, you know, imply that obviously it's hitting them. Gohan himself looks great here too. And then a really cool attention too is they have this kind of cut with the zoom where you don't really notice it, but then Gohan is following through a little bit more, right? He's twisted his body a slight bit to then properly follow through on the blast, right? And very interesting cut that they have right here, with obviously the blast being there, and then they zoom right into the blue. I think that that's fine. Then obviously Gohan's hand is sort of pushing back against the enemy and throwing it up at them, which is pretty cool. And this is a really interesting bit of perspective here, right? Like the camera angle at work here, obviously after you see it's a couple different shots really, right? Like you kind of see the ball in the frame first, and then Gohan's hand is kind of moving past the screen, right? Which then you get this shot from behind of Gohan where he's lifting it up and throws it against the enemy, right? Which is cool. And then it has a quick little flash into here, right? With obviously Gohan kind of twisted around because obviously he's already thrown the ball, and obviously the ball going up, and a cool little jump with some nice little minimal movement on his body overall. And then the explosion, which is really, really cool, and a nice little touch at the end. Obviously with that, right, the sort of thing, the implication, I guess, is that Gohan is obviously, after he's thrown it, right, it kind of detonates, right, and you can obviously see his arm move up to then, after the impact frame is there, right, he's kind of pointing it up towards the enemy. Which either, I think, maybe it's not so much as like pointing at the enemy like he was the one who like detonated. I think it's just moving his arm back into like a more natural position. But I like that a lot, because I feel like if this was the Trunks essay, they wouldn't have done that, clearly, by what we took a look at in this essay. But it's nice to see that even for something as simple as that, they just kind of have a little bit more follow through, and it makes these animations feel a lot more lifelike and interesting to look at, right? Very cool with the little air effects too there, and the blue explosion is nice, especially with the blue kind of covering the sky too. Alright, now we have the 18 key super attack, which looks really, really cool. First of all, we have Gohan fly into frame here, which looks really good. I love the way that they make him feel a lot more 3D. There's a little jump here, but obviously it's not as bad because, of course, he's coming into frame, so that's perfectly fine. With obviously, though, this shot, right, like the way that his body kind of twists after sort of like, or in the middle of, I guess, spinning around sort of like in this kind of twisting to go to the enemy, looks really, really good. And obviously you can see that Gohan is winding up a punch here, which is cool. I love the sort of elongated body, because obviously it kind of looks a little bit strange, I suppose, in like a still frame like this, but it looks really good in motion because obviously it gives you that implication of Gohan moving super quickly, which is really cool. The key looks good too, and then obviously we have Gohan fly in towards Android 18 here. Cut to a very nice close-up. I don't think I actually saw this yet. This looks really good. Hydrate or dihydrate, by the way. Always got to say it in one of my videos. We have then Gohan move past towards the screen, which is a really cool, again, bit of perspective. I really like the different angles that they have for the camera angles for this guy. It's a lot of really interesting different bits of like where you're looking in the essay and how you're seeing the attack play out, rather than it just kind of being in front of your face, right? So Gohan obviously getting close to the camera, and then it's kind of supposed to be like his face is moving past, but obviously they cut to a close-up of his mouth, which is super HD, by the way. Those like lines are super nice. But I guess that makes sense because it's like the mouth of this particular Gohan asset. And they transition to this one, which I think is a tiny bit different, and obviously you can see it's a little bit more lower quality, but that's obviously because it's going to be a little bit more farther back on the camera. And it's nice to see that they actually bothered to make two different assets for this, because I've seen in essays before where they go from a shot that's super close up like this with a zoom in to then something like this, where they just use this asset and it looks super pixely and gross when it's like this. And then obviously once it zooms out, it looks a little bit better. So it's nice to see that they actually put in the effort to make a close-up asset for that before finally zooming out. We have Gohan's punch kind of come forward, and I like that they make his arm super big to obviously kind of give you that bit of perspective. That's really cool. Obviously, Gohan's fist going towards the screen again. It's really, wow, the camera work and like the perspectives in this shot, or in this essay rather, excuse me, is just fantastic. Yeah, I like the fist coming towards the screen. POV, you are Android 18. About to get rocked. We have the very nice little impact frame that, wait, hold on. Why does it look like Batman? This kind of reminds me of like the Batman Beyond logo for some reason. It's definitely the little like Batman ears in the middle there. But anyway, obviously, we now have Gohan's back where obviously, you know, Gohan has already thrown the punch. Very cool. Gohan teleporting forward. And then behind the enemy to give the kick, right? The slam down, which again feels like it has definitely a lot of impact behind it. This whole sequence with the kick, I really like the motion lines, the kind of blur that they got on it, right? Very, very nice with Gohan teleporting behind. It just feels like really heavy, like he's really stamping down on Android 18, which is cool. Of course, we have the shot from the ground now with the little explosion and Gohan still high in the sky. And this was definitely a very nice surprise because obviously future Gohan does not do this attack. But I'm sure with not only the superhero movie giving Gohan the special beam cannon, and not to mention obviously considering Piccolo is part of this card, it is really cool that they gave Gohan the special beam cannon for this. I just realized, you know what's kind of cool? I didn't even realize the sort of duality of this essay that almost makes it kind of poetic. Obviously, like, the attacks are one thing, but this is kind of like a Goku move, right? Sort of like using like a, you know, blue ki blast, a little bit of maybe Kamehameha energy. Either way, it's just like blue ki to kind of like throw it against the enemy like that. It almost is kind of like reminiscent of like a Spirit Bomb sort of type of deal, right? It feels like a little bit more of a Goku-esque attack, right? And then for the 18 key super, he does a Piccolo-based attack. I did not even realize the duality of that with this card, and then obviously crescendos with the active skill, where he then has both of them in there. That is really, really cool. Wow, this unit just gets better and better the more I talk about him, man. So either way, we have Gohan with his fingers to his head, which looks great. You have this little zoom out here, right? Which this is a great place to cut, by the way, if you're going to do this kind of zoom, right? Where you have the zoom in here, and then obviously for the faraway shot, they kind of go back. But it's believable enough by this point that it's fine to go there. Obviously, Gohan floating in the sky looks good. And this is actually a fantastic spot where they do a good job doing a rapid color change. Because in that one spot before I saw, where I was kind of pointing out that it felt a little bit jarring, here it makes a lot more sense because obviously the attack is beginning to form in his fingertips. The electricity looks great. The little light on the edges of his fingers looks fantastic too. I like as well the little bit of movement that they have here for Gohan, right? You can kind of see, funny enough, his belt even shifts a little bit there. I will say this is definitely a little bit of a jarring change in assets here, especially with the shading. But I mean, to be fair, I guess the shadows are pretty consistent still, even though it's just like a, you know, one pose to another. But it is just a little bit weird with like the shading on the unit, right? And the thickness of the lines and whatnot. But yeah, obviously the zoom in to Gohan about to launch the special beam cannon there is really good. We have the card art appear on the screen. And then we have Gohan pulling back with the attack there, right? Twisting around, the nice little electricity effect popping in there. And then obviously Gohan swinging his arm forward. Very, very nice little bit of motion blur there to then have the arm come forward and fire off the special beam cannon, which looks fantastic. Holy cow. Before we get to the actual special beam cannon itself, let's talk about like the actual launch, right? So obviously a little bit of yellow light looks right there, a little spark of electricity, but look at this. It grows, and then this little bit here is just so cool, right? Not to mention the colors that appear here of kind of like the, you know, obviously this really cool anime-esque like color change. Purple guy? Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. With obviously not to mention the little bit of ki surrounding Gohan's hand there. That is a pretty cool little bit there as well. Definitely love the way that looks and the way it kind of like expands a little bit to kind of represent how powerful the attack is going to be. And then obviously the pink background kind of changing with how Gohan looks there. And the actual special beam cannon looks fantastic. The way that it looks like it's kind of twisting around and whatnot is really, really nice. And even the electricity kind of sparking around the whole thing. It just looks so good. It's super nice looking special beam cannon animation, if I do say so myself. They really nailed it. The only thing that I think is kind of unfortunate about the background specifically, I understand it's because it's more of just like that anime-esque effect, but it would have been really cool to have the background stay this kind of pink color as he fired it, even into like this scene, right, where the background is then blue, which is like the normal one. It's not, you know, it's not like a bad thing. It's just something that would have been kind of cool to see, right? Obviously, you know, since I'm analyzing this, you know, hyper analyzing it as much as I can, I'm just giving you my complete thoughts on it. I don't think it's bad that they didn't keep the pink, but it just would have been a cool little addition to it. I do like as well the kind of implication of this, that you kind of have this like perspective here of this, and then it's really in your face. I think that's a decent transition. It definitely could have been a little bit more like getting closer to the screen and then kind of going around the side, because they've done that for different beam effects before, and I think it's looked pretty good. But then we basically get the attack from the back, right, with a little bit of electricity, and the attack kind of envelops the camera for a moment with the same kind of color that the attack was, before then cutting to this really cool shot here of the special beam cannon from the back. I love the electricity effects and the light like kind of breaking through the sound barrier type of thing there, right? Obviously the twist looks fantastic for the special beam cannon, and having it finally land with this nice little explosion looks great. I like the little purple smoke and whatnot. All the little debris coming off of that too looks fantastic, ladies and gentlemen. Super cool that they included that. That is definitely a Dokkan original thing right there. And by golly, I will say, I feel like up until this point, some of the Dokkan original stuff that's been like just kind of scenes within essays have kind of not really been like super great. But I will say for the like really Dokkan original stuff, like for Vegito and Gohan here, I feel like they've been doing a pretty good job overall with it. Okay, so now we can actually skip a little bit of this because this part here is just the domain activation. I will show you the animation for this. It's interesting because this is the first one, I believe at least, that doesn't have a active skill activation. It just activates on its own. And I really like not only just the overall Dokkan feel, the domain, right? Like, look of this. I really like the way that they have it spread out just for every single domain. But the Broken City, obviously this part here, right, is the scene where Trunks finds Gohan in the water right after the androids take him out. So really, really cool. They did a great job on this background. And again, I just love the way that the Dokkan field animation looks. It's so cool, man. So skipping ahead here now too, the interesting thing about the active skill activation is that you can only get it once the Dokkan field is active. And when the Dokkan field is active skill, that's funny. Real funny, Dokkan. But we now have the active skill animation, which look how long this is, by the way. Like, in comparison to the rest of the video, right? Like, this is almost like a third of the video that the active skill takes up, which is just so crazy to me, dude. So we have this nice introduction shot here of Gohan with the key surrounding him, right? Classic shot of future Gohan here. By the way, I just gotta point out the animation for this looks really, really good. I will say it is like maybe a little bit of a jarring transition between this to this, but I feel like it's like enough where when you're watching it in the quick speeds, right, it's not really going to be that jarring on your eyes. It is a little bit weird that they kind of go from you looking on the outside of the aura to then you're kind of like in the aura, and it's a little bit more condensed around him rather than this kind of going crazy around his entire body, but I still think it looks good. I love the lighting effects throughout here, obviously with the energy from Gohan's hand kind of shining on his face. Again, a sort of classic future Gohan pose here, lifting his hand then up to the sky with obviously the white flash Bro, I'm gonna be honest, like, I don't even know why they did the white flash here. I mean, I guess it's just because then they didn't have to animate, like, the ki blast forming in his hand. And it's also just, like, you know, because the energy is kind of going crazy in this moment. But I feel like they almost just could have had it appear in his hand, and it would have been fine. Because, I mean, even, like, this frame to this frame isn't really that bad. But I guess I appreciate it nonetheless, bro. Thank you, Dokkan Dev Team. Very cool. I like the way that the energy looks in his hand, right? Not only does it look really good, but it looks super natural, and I love the lighting effects on it too. We then have Gohan bring his arm down, and by golly, ladies and gentlemen, this animation is super smooth. I think it's really just at the end that there's like one part that I was like, ooh, that's maybe a little bit rough, but Gohan bringing his hand down here, right? This animation is super fluid. This, right here, going from this to this, maybe could have like one more frame in between, but it's not too bad. And obviously then, this is the one thing that is definitely a little bit jarring. This like kind of bright light that is showing on Gohan's face, right? Where his face is really illuminated by the ki blast, and then transitioning to this where it's a little bit darker, and obviously the kind of like a little bit, I guess, of the style of the acid is like a small bit different. It's not crazy, but obviously then transitioning from this to this. But of course, in terms of the pose, they keep it pretty consistent, which is good. And then I guess it's here, right? Like, I kind of wish they had one more thing between this and this. But again, it's certainly not bad, right? Again, I'm nitpicking because, of course, you know, I'm hyper-analyzing the animations. Yeah, this, I think, is the one that I kind of felt like a little bit. And I think it doesn't help that with this particular change here, right? Gohan is pretty bright overall, right? Obviously, a lot of the coloring on his pants is a lot more bright. The coloring on his face is a lot more bright. And then it turns to this very dark shadow right here, which I will say is correct because obviously the light is behind him. And it would be, you know, I guess darker behind him and, you know, kind of light where you're not seeing right now. But it is just a little bit weird going from this to this, right? It's just a little bit jarring, I think is a better word to use. But yeah, then obviously Gohan moves a little bit here. And some very nice, oh my gosh, dude. Very, very nice rotoscoping on Gohan here, right? After we get to this particular shot, right? You have this super nice scene where Gohan... Wait, let me go back a little bit because I know there was a little bit more to this. Yeah, okay. So once we actually get to like the part where, you know, the kind of like shadows are a little bit more intense on Gohan here, we get to this particular shot here where you can see as we go the frame by frame, it looks fantastic at how fluid the movement is, right? It's these small little in-between frames and these not really jarring changes in the pose that really make this animation feel so fluid and so nice. Obviously, for the zoom in, it's a lot more appropriate to then have kind of like a little bit more of a pose change because obviously you're zooming in and, you know, it kind of feels a little bit better on the old brain, right? And then obviously Gohan bringing it forward, right, to throw his arm into the camera, throw his hand into the camera. Very reminiscent of the Super Saiyan 2 Gohan scene as well. I love the lighting effects on the Kamehameha. And these little black lines here also I feel like really add a lot too. Oh, that's raw. This is cool too where the light kind of expands a little bit. But yeah, then we go into this impact frame of Gohan with him launching the attack forward, which looks super cool here with obviously the screen shaking a little bit from the energy. And obviously I love the way that it's kind of flying out of his hand. That looks fantastic. We have the Kamehameha at a really cool angle kind of coming up from the ground. Like obviously kind of from the horizon almost, right, with these little effects, and obviously the little bit of the dust and debris break in there. We have some nice anime-esque background lines and the Kamehameha absorbing the enemy. This shot is really cool too, with like the energy just kind of barreling over the enemy and Gohan right there. This shot right here obviously is from the anime, but of course probably a lot of you will recognize that this is very reminiscent of Gohan's attack from the Int Future Gohan, which ironically enough just got an easy A. Because obviously this was just kind of the scene that they based it off of for this. But it's cool that they implemented this shot again and made it a little bit more unique this time, because obviously it's not just the same attack, right? So we have this great shot of Gohan from the side here. I really like the lighting effects and all the flashing and craziness that's going on the screen. And Gohan closing his eye is really cool. I love this getting dark, right? And not only was this super hype for just watching this for the first time, this is just super hype because it's like, oh my gosh, Gohan's not going to make it, right? And then you have the, hey, don't give up, right? Or obviously after the black screen fades out, you can see that Goku reaches his arm forward to support Gohan, which is super cool. Obviously, this is just such an awesome shot here, right? And obviously, you can see Piccolo comes in with his words of encouragement, and you can see his arm comes in on the side too, which is super, super cool. Before we get to this shot right here, where it's kind of like Gohan's hazy memory almost, or like it's kind of like in his head that Goku, and of course Gohan's there, that Goku and Piccolo are there, which is really cool too, because in the actual, like, you know, scene here, right, they're not actually there, of course, and it's not like you can see Gohan next to Goku in this particular, well, I mean, I guess that's correct, but Goku next to Gohan is what I meant to say, like right here. And the way that this is sort of like hazy and glowy, and obviously the way that they're kind of like semi-transparent in the scene, really makes it feel like that they're like ghosts, or like Gohan's memories, or like his thoughts, or something like that. So this shot is so cool. I really, really like this one. I've been seeing people post this like particular screenshot on Twitter. It's definitely like one of the like best shots from the essay for sure. Really, really cool. And I like that they even animate them moving here. Like, this is something that they didn't have to even bother animate. Like, this could have just been a PNG on the screen. But no, they animated their clothes moving and their hair moving, which is so cool. Gohan Beast KO screen makes me sad that it was just a static PNG and they didn't animate it at all, man. But nonetheless, very, very good job here. I love this too, that obviously kind of like they have a little bit of a follow-up shot where Gohan's eyes kind of expand a little bit, where he's like, no, I can do this, I can push on through. You even have his arm move a little bit there to kind of push forward, and you can see him actually move forward a little bit too, with the light kind of seemingly getting a little bit more intense almost. And then we obviously, oh, that's raw, holy cow. We have this shot here, right, which is basically the card art, but obviously just like the essay version. Obviously this is where the card art got the, you know, card art from. I will say the only thing that is kind of a little bit unfortunate about this particular shot, and I really like this shot, don't get me wrong, I think it looks great. I like the rocks flying everywhere. I like the beam effects coming off of Gohan. Obviously from his hand, right? Obviously Goku and Piccolo, again, their clothes still moving, which is awesome. And again, the semi-transparent effect on them, you know, kind of with the implication that they aren't actually there and they're just in Gohan's memories. I love the background, right? The camera angle that we get from this as well is really cool. But I feel like the only thing that is a little bit disappointing about this particular shot is just that it's not really like dynamic in the movement, because I feel like it is in what's going on. But I guess just like the camera angle, right? Like, it is basically like they're just standing there, right? Where like for this one, I feel like it made a little bit more sense because it's kind of like Gohan's memories coming into form, and then, you know, he's kind of realizing what he's sort of like seeing in his mind, or that like he can do it, right? It feels more like a dream sequence type beat. But then for this, right, I know Gohan, I guess, is just standing there, so I know that's a little bit, like, silly to say, but I think maybe you understand what I'm trying to get at, right? It is a very, like, you know, static shot. Obviously, there's a lot going on around them and on Gohan's clothes and Goku and Piccolo, so I'm getting my goes confused here, but I don't know, it would have been cool to have it maybe, like, zoom out from, like, Gohan's face and then zoom out to this shot or something like that, right? Especially considering you know, it comes from the shot of Gohan from the side or something like that. But do not be mistaken. This does not mean that I dislike what is there, because that is absolutely not the truth. I really like what's there. I love what's there. In fact, I think it looks fantastic. I just wish that maybe there could have been a little bit something extra, but obviously that does not make it bad by any means. And you can definitely disagree with me on that in the comments. Feel free to, you know, feel different about that point, obviously. But it would have been cool just to have something like that, where like it maybe zoomed out to this shot or something like that, or maybe have like a cut to like Goku to Piccolo to Gohan or something like that, right? Just to make the shot a little bit more interesting. But what is there looks absolutely fantastic. And then, obviously, after this, we finish off the scene with a shot of Gohan from the back. The blast looks fantastic, right? I love the little bit of the darkness on Gohan. Obviously, the shadows are perfect for how they should look, with obviously the light, you know, being in front of him. You can see even kind of like the little edges of the light around him there, which is really cool too. With obviously even the movement on him there. And then, of course, the Kamehameha effect destroying the enemy sprite, the kind of shadow of them. I like the way that they do this always with the little bit of the kind of dissipation, I guess. Is that the right word, right? Obviously, the enemy sort of dissipates like that. And then we cut to the KO screen, which I didn't even think there was going to be a KO screen, because I was like, after all that madness, all that craziness, all that hype, surely there's not more. And lo and behold, there's more. We have Gohan with his arms stretched out, obviously breathing really heavily with the little bit of the light, the little glint on the camera there. Looks really cool. The sun's rays shining down and Gohan breathing super heavily. I love the color palette here as well. Obviously very Z-esque color palette. I really like it when they display Super Saiyan hair with this sort of like lighter tone that's almost like a little bit more closer to white than like straight up yellow. I always just think it looks really good. But yeah, very cool KO screen. Obviously a specific animation that you only see for the KO screen. It's not a KO screen where it's like it's just the last frame of the animation and they use that as it. It's like a specific KO screen animation. So very, very cool. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that is all of Gohan's animations for a unit that kind of took the limelight of the character that everyone was expecting and anticipating. By golly, they really gave us something to compensate, that's for darn sure. Because holy cow, Gohan's animations are really, really nice. They're such a joy to look at. They're really, really fun. And it's just like interesting stuff happening on the screen 24/7. The effects look nice. All of the different like what if scenarios and stuff like that are really, really cool. And obviously Future Gohan is a very loved character in the community. So I feel like a lot of people really didn't mind, at least, that like it's unfortunate that it's Rose, but I have not really seen anybody being like mad that it was Future Gohan, is I guess the best way to put it. His animations, though, absolutely fantastic. I think they blow Trunks out of the water like 9 billion%. It's clear that somebody likes Future Gohan at Akatsuki, bro. They did such a good job on this guy, and it's so funny to me that, like, this unit, out of all of the units in this entire celebration, like the one unit that kind of feels like the odd man out, right? Like he's not from the Super Saga, right? He's not like Vegeta and Zamasu like people were anticipating, right? Obviously Trunks is kind of like the unit, or the character rather, this entire celebration was themed around. And lo and behold, he's just the best. Like there's really no other way to put it. I really like Zamasu's animations, right? I think overall they're very consistent, right? They're not my favorite in the game, but I do really like them. Vegito, I've talked about to no end by this point. I think he has those two really good animations, but the rest are either mediocre and stinky. And Trunks's are just kind of like the most mundane, like meh, mid, whatever one of those adjectives you want to use to describe Trunks's animations. But I would say the unit with the overall most amount of quality and time and care put into the unit, and love clearly, is Future Gohan. He has the most consistency in terms of how good his animations are and how good they look out of all three of the rest of the big boy headliner units for this celebration, which is crazy because, again, he really does feel like the odd man out. My man came out of left field and absolutely blasted away the competition. So I'm not gonna lie, I really like this guy's animations. I think they're really cool. Obviously, there's always stuff that Dokkan can improve on, and there's always stuff that they can do better, right? Even in this video, I had a couple of different nitpicks with the animations, and obviously that's the point of looking through them in this kind of way to, you know, dissect them like this. But overall, I would say his animations are fantastic. The active skill is one of my favorite animations in the game. I can't even really pick like what's the best animation here. Like I know it's like, how would you not say the active skill? And it probably is the active skill, right? But I think that they're all, that's just a, you know, a testament to how good the quality is in all of the animations rather than just one of them. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think in the comments section below. I would be very curious to hear what you all have to say. I think, I'm just going to say it, I think out of all the units of this celebration, he has the best animations overall out of all of the units, which is just so crazy to say. But, I mean, look at what's on your screen right now, dude. Absolutely fantastic. If you did enjoy, please let me know in the comments section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Please give me your thoughts on this bad boy, and don't forget to watch the Trunks video. I'm really glad, I will say, to kind of wrap up on this one, that I was super negative in the Trunks video because, man, it just like was not it for the animation. So I'm really glad, after just not feeling great about those animations at all after finishing that video and just being really disappointed and disheartened, that future Gohan could come in and sweep me off my feet and just, you know, make me absolutely ecstatic about this. TLDR, we are so back. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one. Dokkan Assets out. Peace.